What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Unparalleled Sports Talk with Joe's Kwame Fisher Jones. As always, I am him on this victory week. I'm making it all, victory month for us Eagle fans. And as always, talking NFL, so I'm joined by my man Chris Franklin of NJ.com. Chris, you were at the parade yesterday. You shared some thoughts off camera. We won't share those on camera, but what was that experience like for this parade? And well, I'll give you the floor in a second, but I was explaining to people that know I'm a lifelong Eagles fan. And I told them that this Super Bowl is different. Like it just felt different. The aesthetics were different. It felt like, yes, it felt like the first one was like kind of like, really? Like we did it? Like really? Didn't feel like it had like this one felt like it from the middle of the season where they were 2-2 to AJ Brown and to the scene with Jalen with Nick Sirianni trying to get to Jalen Carter on the sidelines and the defensive line coach won't let him anywhere near him and Big Dom was like, you know what? I'm not about that. I don't want that smoke with the linemen. So I'm gonna tell you to go. That whole situation. Like it just felt like this was an Eagles team, man. And to see the humility that these guys, including AJ Brown, even with his speech at the tail end of his speech, but the humility that those guys had was like nobody was braggadocious, nobody was like we're better. So what was your feelings or what was the experience like at the parade for you?
For me, it was one of those things where I think this team is really, truly get the feeling they're the best team in this league, and it wasn't even a
Yeah,
question. It's that feeling of that they're dominant, and they always said the toughest thing to do is winning or learning how to win. And the fact they figured that out early on, and then now they have the confidence to see, hey, everybody was talking about the Chiefs. They were wire to wire. They were supposed to be the best team in the league, and to completely dominate it, it's like, wait, if we play our
yeah.
best game all three phases the way they did in the Super Bowl, nobody can touch them.
You
And to
think they
see
played their
that,
best game? Well, we can do a Super Bowl recap, but
yeah,
that's interesting. It's interesting you
yeah,
say that.
it's when you look at it, it's like what? So you see, I was talking to some of the players, and I know Zach Bond the day before said he was going to try to look at the YouTube to watch videos, trying to get used to see what he's going to do. And some of the players were doing it, and when they finally came to realize that many people actually care about the sport in that city, they were speechless. Some of them let it out a little bit known after having a few beverages. But yeah, it was crazy to see that and they took it all in, and I think they're getting used to the fact that you know what, we can have more of these. We keep playing that well.
Yeah, that naughty nectar brings out a certain amount of confidence. But going back to Super Bowl because I was going to lead into that, but we can go right into it. I didn't think they played their best game. Even when they were up 34 nothing, I felt like there was still a lot of meat to be had on the bone. And that's why I'll just say that's why I think this team is headed on a run. They've been to Super Bowl twice in 3 years. I think we're looking at a 3 year, 2 and 3 year window in the sense of 2 wins, or actually, excuse me, 3 wins in 4 years. I believe this team is that dominant, and they've got there's nothing that they have that can't be replaced with another good player. Like as great as Saquon was this year, he's not going to rush for 2,000. It's very unlikely he rush for 2,000, but if he gives you 1,800, that gives you a little bit more pass attempts. You know what I mean? And this notion that Jalen, it's funny. I'm old enough to remember Tom Brady's first Super Bowl. And I'm not saying Jalen Hurts will be the next Tom Brady. But what I am saying is that each quarterback has similar hurdles when they went early in their career. When Brady first beat the Rams, he was a game manager. And there was no way he would outthrow a Ben Roethlisberger or Eli Manning or Philip Rivers or Peyton Manning. Stop me if you hear a name that isn't below him now. Was no way he could outthrow them guys from the pocket in his first and second Super Bowl. Then as his career progressed and the weapons around him changed and things changed, he became a monster. He became a 7-time Super Bowl winning monster. And Jalen has that same mindset. I'm not saying he'll be the next Tom Brady because I believe he's going to be the first Jalen Hurts, but he's got that same mindset. And as long as you got that position and you've got a young head coach, which Sirianni is, you've got a great offensive line coach, which they got in Jeff Stoutland, and you've got, let's say they've got some young horses on the defensive line. I think Jalen Carter will be there for a while. I think Jordan Davis will be there for a while, and they'll draft somebody under him, and they'll get some edge rushers. But as long as you've got that core middle of the field with your safety and C.J. Gardner Johnson, with your linebacker with Zach Bourne, we'll discuss in a minute, and the two tackles, I don't see why this team can't go on a run. Am I jumping the gun? Do you believe this is the precipitous, if I said that right, of them going on a 3-year, 3 championships in four-year window?
I can see them going on a run. I think maybe they get two. This team is it's the way this team's constructed. It reminds me of a better version of that Seattle Seahawks team with the Legion of Boom. To
I
me, it
disagree, but
does
okay.
because I look at Jalen Hurts and he reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson. He's admitted he idolized Russell Wilson when he was growing up. And you look at their mindsets. Like I think Jalen has a little bit more. I think he has a little bit more. I was
Cooling.
going to say. I'm not going PC, but I was going to say a little less corniness than
Yeah, he's a little bit
than
more
Russell
cool.
Wilson. Yeah, he definitely is. So I see those situations, but I can see them facing the Chiefs not next year, but the year after that. I think we see another matchup. I think it's going Eagles Ravens next year. I can see that matchup happening.
Mm,
But they're set up at least for the next 2 seasons because you look at all the key players: AJ Brown,
mhm.
Devontae Smith. You got Davis is going to. They're probably going to put the 5th-year option on Jordan Davis. You got Jalen Carter won't be approaching that 5th year or an additional thing then. And you look at the other side of the ball, a lot of these guys are young. So you still got the rookie contracts on the defensive side of the ball for a lot of key positions. You're set pretty well. And even then you got Saquon for the next 2 more years after this. So they're basically said, hey, we're giving you before the season started, you have a 3-year window to do as much as you can. And I think they get to at least a Super Bowl, at least one Super Bowl again. Next year, I think they get back. I really do, just because of the way things are set up. I think they get back. But yeah, they're the same set. 3 out of 4, 3 wins out of 4. I don't know, but I can see them getting to at least two more Super, like at least one more Super, at least.
I we'll take a break after this show for about 2, 3 weeks, then we'll get into like a year review. I believe the NFC East is going to be a little better, sans the Cowboys. I think the Giants are going to be a little better than people anticipate. I definitely think the Commanders will be a better team. They may not have a better record, but they'll be a better team. The big thing that I look at for the Eagles, the loss of Kellen Moore. Where is that going to rank? How's that going to play out for them? How is that going to manifest itself through the season? And what's going to happen with Zach Bourne? But the reason why I don't think that's going to derail them from going back to back or repeating as champions is because the book's not out on this team yet. If that makes any sense at all. That's what happens with Patrick Mahomes. And I heard a great analogy from I want to say it was Freddie Coleman. It was on the Freddie Coleman ESPN radio show, but he had a great analogy about Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have been the bullies of the AFC. And when you're being bullied, I don't know if you've ever been bullied. I was a small window, I was bullied. But when
Well,
you're
like Urkel
getting,
when I was younger.
I
Sorry.
had my moments of getting bullied, but it was one morning I woke up and said, "Nah, somebody gonna die today," and I don't know what happened. But from that moment, I've never been bullied. I detest bullies. I am not a guy that do not like bullies. But anyway, story for another day. So, but they were saying that Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs have been the bullies of the AFC. And everyone just witnessed the bully getting their butt handed to him in the schoolyard for the entire recess. And what happens when you finally see the bully bleed? Now, you may not be able to make him bleed, but now you're starting to think I can make them bleed. And that's what I think is going to happen in the AFC this year coming up. It's not just the Bills, but it's going to be the Texans that have that awful division. So they're going to be in the playoffs. It's a young team that nobody's looking at right now. That's in the gym grinding, Cape Fear style, doing pull-ups. Doing pull-ups, Robert De Niro style, getting themselves ready for the upcoming season. And it's the Steelers that have had trouble in the playoffs. Now they're watching him bleed, and you're watching Aaron Rodgers kind of trickle out there. And as much I'm big sustain for Aaron Rodgers, 2 more completed passes, and maybe teams will go from the 4 seed to the 2 seed. So you get the gist of what I'm saying. That book, though's not out on the Eagles. Eagles aren't the bullies. They're just the better team right now. They're the better team in the most important position. So that's why I think they will repeat. What say you?
Well, I think yeah, you make a good point because I'm looking at like you look around at I think the 49ers are that whole thing. They're going to dismantle. I don't see them. I don't see them at all.
Debo asked for a trade, or he
Yeah,
got permission to seek a trade.
mhm.
It's like
That's
we saw that coming. Circle that, call that Christmas because we all saw that coming.
yep. So you got that, and then I look at the North. I don't think the Lions are going to be what they are next year because they're going to have new coordinators. So I think they take a step back. Do you fear the Vikings now with JJ McCarthy potentially? Not really. I think they overachieve with Dark. Even the Dark comes back, I think they overachieve. So yeah, that the Packers. Well, we saw what the Eagles did to the Packers already.
Yeah, you called that.
And then you look at the NFC South. The only kryptonite, and they're better than them. I don't know, and you know how certain teams they need to get the Buccaneers out their system because it's just something mental. It's like, you know what, this team is better constructed. They are better than them, but something about them where they just continually just struggle with them. They're the only teams I can see like, and I think the Eagles. I'll go on record saying this too. I think they break the streak of a whole back to back. No back to back division champions. I think they break that streak. But if the Buccaneers come in as like a 6 seed or whatever, I don't. Well, I'll put it this way: unless the Eagles don't make it, they're a wild card. They have to go to Florida and play Tampa Bay. Then I'm like, oh, the heck is going on here? But
That weather, man.
yeah,
That weather, bro.
yeah, they run the NFC. They as of right now, if most of those guys come back, I think they are the class of the NFC. The AFC, the Bills maybe if they retool and get another wide receiver. I'm sorry, I know they need another wide receiver. They really truly do. But you look at that, the Texans, maybe a new offensive coordinator gets things right. It's not really the Chiefs. Maybe the Ravens are the only team I look at if they. It seems like we say it every year, so we know it's not going to happen. But if you get another wide receiver, another weapon, then yeah, I can see them really being. I can see them being a problem. But other than that, it ain't much.
Well, the NFC, excuse me, the AFC has yet to be determined. Look, the, looking at the Chiefs landscape going forward, they have a problem, and their problem is their division. Their division has two tremendous coaches and one guy that's a good coach, allegedly a tremendous coach. But they've got Pete Carroll, who's a good coach, who's a tremendous coach. I mean, he showed it in USC. He showed it, even if you go back to his Patriots and Jet days. So Pete Carroll will get the Raiders competitive. I know people think that's crazy. He's too old to play with his grandkids. Stop that. I don't. We discussed that. I don't believe in discriminating. Look, Pete Carroll can do that job. He will do that job. And if the rumors are true that they're going to grab Aaron Rodgers, there's no reason to believe that they've got the best tight end in the game. I think I'm it's Blake Bowers. I know his last name is Bowers. Not one of the best tight ends in the game. In Vegas, so they'll be good. Jim Harbaugh is a good coach too.
Oh, yeah.
Jim a real good coach, and the Chargers were up and down all around. I'm not gonna. I don't think I'm going out on a limb by saying this team will probably deliver next year. So those are two teams. Those are two wins for Kansas City that they're gonna, or four wins that could possibly go to 2-2 now. Now let's go to Denver. Look, I don't like Sean Payton. Big no bones about it. I don't like anything about Sean Payton. But the Denver Broncos played well last year, and they made it to the playoffs. And I won't say they overachieved because depending on depending on what you were as a fan, or you sat on their fandom, you may believe what you saw. But they'll be a good team next year. So now Kansas City goes from 4-2, 5-1 in their division to possibly 3-3. Now it's no longer the Arrowhead Invitational. Now they've got to go on the road and win some teams. And like I said, Pittsburgh could be sitting there in the wings. The Texans could. It may not be those teams, but it's going to be a team that is right there, that's been right there, and is finally going to end the final blow. Because if you remember, it wasn't the Giants that beat that beat the 49ers that ended the Joe Montana run. It was the year after. It was the year after when Joe Montana was out of there. So yeah, I think that I think the Chiefs' run is over. I think it's over. Patrick Mahomes may win one more later in his career. Andy Reid isn't going to stay around for another rebuild. And once Andy Reid leaves the building, now you got a whole new Chiefs team. Who's going to replace Andy Reid? I give Andy maybe 3 more years, to be honest with you. 2 of those years upsets in the playoffs. Then maybe the third year they finally win the Super Bowl. But bottom line is the AFC's yet to be determined. The NFC, it doesn't matter who shows up. It doesn't matter who shows up. The Eagles are the better team. And you and I have been around sports long enough to know this. I feel like I'm tucking the other one, so I'm gonna wrap it up on this point and give it back to you. we've witnessed a lot of things in sports. We know when we're seeing something special. And the only reason that gives you cause for pause is because it's the Eagles that you're seeing that's special. But if this were the Dallas Cowgirls, we'd be sitting there like, I think they're gonna be around for a while. So yeah, so we're in the midst of something special. You know what I mean? What say you?
Well, I thought you mentioned that. I thought it was funny. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro said it as well too. It says like he says like, yeah, they're not America's team anymore. You look at the numbers and everything else. The Eagles are America's team, and you look at
Yeah,
that, and yeah, I mean, even if you look, it's funny because when you look at like those '90s Cowboys, what was the biggest hallmark of that team? The offensive line,
yeah,
the quarterback not making bad decisions. You have two really good, even if it was Michael Irvin, even if it was Harper or whoever they had on the other side, two really good wide receivers,
yeah,
a decent tight end in Novacek, and then you had a good defense. It's eerie how else it mirror, but yet being that it's the Eagles in Philadelphia, everybody's going, no, it can't happen. No, it's
yeah,
Philadelphia. No, I'm gonna do that one too. They are they have a lot of similarities because to a lot of Super Bowl teams, and they were able to sustain it for a long time. And the way that Howie Roseman set this team up, constructed this team, even though they have 17 million in the cap, they're going to have more because James Bradbury, I think they're going to restructure some stuff on there. You have some guys that are probably they can always convert. And the beauty about that stuff is Jeffrey Lurie has never been shy about converting, allowing Howie to convert, restructure contracts so that way you just pay money down the line. So
yeah.
you can do that with Jalen Hurts' contract, AJ Brown contract. It doesn't affect them; they just get the money up front. So there's room to be made for them to get that stuff and to add some pieces.
Yeah, and I was gonna, that leads me to my next question. Speaking of contracts, well, first let me ask with Kellen Moore, how do you think that's going to play out next season, and who's his likely replacement? I know we're hearing, but what do you think? Who do you think his likely replacement will be?
I think right now it's Kevin Patullo, the passing game coordinator. I think he's
Mhm.
in the lead right now. And it's a little, and I'll say this, I like Kevin Patullo personally, and I think he's done a good job as well too. There's going to be trepidation as well too, because remember the Eagles did that same thing back after they won the Super Bowl after Frank Reich did. They went with Mike Rowe, Mike Rowe. Sorry, I'll go. I keep messing the name up. Rowe, the wide receivers coach, and we saw what happened. There's that. I think Kevin and Nick have talked for a long time. I think they'll just build upon what they had beforehand. Kellen Moore is interested. I remember rumor that he's interested in Patullo too. But one thing that Nick Sirianni has said before, like usually he took the same thing Frank Reich. Usually hands off the assistants. That's why Sirianni, reportedly, yeah, may not have been a little too happy in terms of Kevin Nick Rallis, the linebackers coach, when the 2022 went down to the Arizona Cardinals from the defensive coordinator because there's an unwritten agreement that you don't touch the staff members. The only
Yeah,
one I think that's really going with them, the Eagles are going to need a new offensive coordinator and a new quarterback because Garrett Nussmeier, I believe, is going to go down with Kellen Moore because he always follows them wherever throughout Dallas to the Chargers to the Eagles and now the Saints. I can see him going down the Saints. So you got Patullo there. The guy another guy who he probably would have reached out to, Tommy Reese, who was the offensive coordinator for Notre Dame. Him and Sirianni are really good friends, but he's going to the Cleveland Browns to be their OC, so he was out.
mm,
Lincoln Riley's not getting fired; he's not leaving. We know how he wanted him initially in 2021 to be the Eagles offensive coordinator. I heard that from somebody, and he
really?
reached out to early because he knew Jalen Hurts. He consulted with him sometime about the offense, but
Mm.
But Riley wouldn't leave unless Riley gets fired, which is not happening because they're already this deep now. Maybe if another offensive coordinator leaves and Riley gets fired, would he be interested at pique his interest? He would be interested to come to the NFL. But
Wow.
yeah, I was also told by I was talking like last week after the news game. I talked to a couple people. Don't be surprised if they're not hired, but the Eagles bring in a couple college people, one or two college people, just to get them to see what's going on around the league, see how they innovate too, to maybe help the new offensive coordinator get some concepts and stuff too. So some
Mm.
interesting name. Gerard Johnson's another name to watch too.
You threw a lot of names. Where is Frank Reich these days?
He is retired still, not retired, but he's in Indianapolis just chilling his feet. But he did tell, I remember there was the Indianapolis Star did a thing in September. He says he may come back for the right opportunity. He might come back. So you can't take his name off the list either.
I think that makes more sense considering the success you had with Fangio before and the success Wright had in Philadelphia. It makes sense. The only thing is, do you go with a name? Do you go with an unknown or do you go with a known? Like that's the question Sirianni has to go with. But I would say this: 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. Last year, I was questioning whether he should return as a coach. But he had a 10 game winning streak 2 years in a row. Like
Mhm.
this dude, even his down year was a playoff. We're leading the division for years, for almost the better part of the season, and losing in the playoffs. That was a down year for him. So Sirianni should be Gucci in the streets. Now I want to talk to the players. Zach Bourne, what's going on with Zach Bourne? The belief is that he's gone, but I think the Eagles might keep him, and I think they'll be able to pay him competitively. Floor's yours.
We talked to him on my days all mixed up. Sorry. We talked to him on
Yeah, I feel you.
Thursday. We talked to him then, and he's open to coming back. He likes the area. He learned to love it. He's still getting used to all this attention and fame and stuff like that. He mentioned that because he's Zach Ball now. He's an All Pro Defensive Player of the Year finalist. So he says the Eagles haven't reached out to him. The
Mm.
Eagles, not yet, but I preface this by saying, speaking to
Now,
somebody beforehand speaking to somebody beforehand the season, the Eagles have made it a practice not to talk about extensions before because they got burnt by that in the late 20, I want to say 2018, 2019 season. From what I've heard, they had a lot of contracts lined up for a lot of those players for extensions. And they were ready to give them. Team went south. So I think it's 2019. The team went south and then they pulled all the contract tables. Players were upset. They were thinking about stuff that took their attention off the season and then end the way it did.
wow.
So I look at that as saying they probably wanted to. Probably talks like, and there may have been another. I'll tell you another story. There may have been another player who during the 2022 season where they had something lined up, and that player kept exceeding the way they played, and then the player said, "Okay, I want to test free agency," and then they were gone. I'll just leave it there. Draw connect the dots that way. So
I
it's not to
cannot, but
say
I'll take your word for it.
like they could, but
I'm
they
illiterate. I
probably
don't read between the lines well.
he may be out in your area. Just leave that. Point with nudge bud.
Are
So
we talking about Hargrove?
I'm not confirming the nine.
You know what's funny? Right.
No, I don't know. I
Well,
don't know because
bridges were burned.
no, he does they still good things. No, I don't think in that terms. I think it's one of those things where I think they want to keep the young thing. So I would be surprised if they draft one in the first or second round because I think Milton Williams is going to get paid a lot of money, and
He
it
had
could
a
be
hell of a Super Bowl.
yeah, and they're really high on Moro Ojomo too. Because if you look at I know it was not in the Lake Show, but like the pass rush win rate, Moro Ojomo was up there in the league when he got on the snaps. So they're high on him too. Like they get backfill, and then I'd also think they draft a guy just to build depth and just in case they want to look at Jordan Davis down the line. But that's down the line.
Yeah,
So I don't think they'll bet.
Howie does it. Howie has, it's great to see guys that didn't play the game who know the game, and we deal with that. It's like the polar opposite in Phil with the Sixers, and I'm not going to touch more than that. I'm just going to say it's just the polar opposite. But guys that didn't play the game, we have to see things. We have to see the totality. We have to understand every nuance because when you play the game, you get comfortable in your position and you fall back on a lot of times on thinking everyone knows what you talk from a place of experience or you talk from a place when you're speaking from a place of knowledge that most people don't have, so you don't understand every aspect of things. You've studied it from a player's perspective, but when you have to speak from a place of you have to be like an external hire. You have to understand how everything works. You got to know how to work everything. When you're a journeyman, you have to know every offense, every defense, every player, and how he approaches it. And you know how he knows football because on the on the front page is the Eagles need an edge rusher. So you say, well, Myles Garrett's available. What's still Myles Garrett? Is there a shot at Myles Garrett? And that's a question I was going to ask you later. But the back page, the headlines, or the back page, the story will read, they like to build it from the inside because you get pressure up the middle. Then that lineman or that quarterback steps back more, and then you get the edge rushers. So you can spend less money on your tackles, get good edge rushers, and get that pressure on the defensive line. And we learned in the last Super Bowl. We talked about this before the game. We really didn't have much to say because I thought they were going to win. You thought the Eagles were going to lose. I said, nah, just don't see it.
No, no, I thought it was,
Did
I
you?
just said it was closer. I thought it was gonna be close. I had one
I
31-27.
told you I didn't think it was going to be close because it was two things that the Eagles weren't going to do. They weren't going to give up a touchdown on a turnover, which Jalen did before. They kept you, and their linebackers were much more athletic than they were in the first. And that was the difference. They were able to not only cover Travis Kelce, they were able to cover space, which negated a lot of that quick passing attack. So now Patrick Mahomes is on his third and fourth read. Now you're giving your line to start wearing their offensive line down. So he's always, Jordan, what was it? What was the line? Jordan Hicks was a linebacker that was high on his list. Nakobe Dean was high. Those are athletic linebackers. Unfortunately, Jordan Hicks still struggled with injuries. I think he's still in the league. Last I checked, it was in Minnesota, right?
So yep.
Yeah, the last I checked, he was a really good linebacker. Just could never stay healthy. And it's not an Embiid issue where he wasn't working hard. You could tell the guy was in the weight room, was doing the things he needed to do. Probably just couldn't handle the cold weather. It happens. I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles go linebacker with one of those first two picks, which sounds a little crazy, but Nolan Carter, they picked him. He hasn't really delivered well. You know, we talked Zach Bourne. You think he'll be back? I don't know because you just said that they haven't talked to him. So they don't even know what the number is going to be yet.
Rumor has it, like looking at some of the stuff around there, at least 9, 10. Well, spot track has it 9. I can see if a team like the Patriots really wants him. Like, problem is Patriots going to have to overpay him just to get him out there, and
Yeah,
they may flash 12, 13. But I think it's going to be somewhere around 10, 11, somewhere around there.
you can't put my GM hat on. You can front load a deal to match the first 2 years. But if you're a player, I mean, the NFL is different. Look, they need Zach Bourne more than Zach Bourne needs the Eagles, but the Eagles can create another one. I mean, let's split what it is. They can find another one. They can find another journeyman linebacker. They can switch guys around. They can make moves. They may not be as good as Bourne, but Cooper DeJean will be a better year. They've got C.J. Gardner Johnson back in the fold. They can get a safety to make up for the difference, so they can figure out ways to get it done. It really is going to come down to if he wants, and I wouldn't be grudging for either way. I wouldn't be grudging for taking a competitive offer and staying in a system that's going to allow him to win. If he takes the money and goes to the Jaguars, like I wouldn't be mad at him either way. You know what I mean? I wouldn't need him either way. But I don't think he's back next year. I don't think he's back
No,
next year.
I can see him getting like something like a 3-year deal. They guaranteed about 60% of it. And then they put a lot of avoidable years on the back end to space it out. And
Yeah,
it's like 2032, 2033, looking like, wait, they're still paying them? Well, yeah, they
yeah,
did. So there were spaces like that. They do something
and
like that.
he earned the money. All right, I got to ask you, who else do you think won't be back? Give me a name you think won't be back.
Ooh, see, Becton to me could be it, but I think he stays. I think Becton and Bond could be the ones. Wet wants to be back. Wet is in the right system to be back. They already forced him to do a restructure, so and he switched agents to Drew Rosenhaus too. So
That's always
I
fun.
don't know, but the problem he's got him over a barrel because the Eagles may not have Brandon Graham and they only have Bryce Huff. You know what? That's one I think is worth watching. Bryce Huff.
That's who won't be back.
That's one to watch
That won't be.
because
He won't be
you get
back.
an actor for the Super Bowl and they made you the main guy. And if Vic Fangio can't do anything with you, even early on, I don't know if you have to do an NBA thing where you attach like a pick just to get him. Like, hey, listen, we know you got a
Yeah.
contract. Even if it's bad, take this pick with it.
Well, how much?
You're
How
good.
much is left on his contract? That's the key question. How much is left on his contract? I'm
Oh,
not asking you now because that you got to go through the numbers before you can know that. But can we get a Son Reddick?
I don't know. That's one I wonder about when you talk about burning bridges. Not to say that one too. He like that. That's one I think they've just moved on from that
It's
situation. He's really good. I mean, we see things happen where things change. I just don't know. I don't know if he'll be back because he's still
Miles
looking for that
Garrett.
contract too.
Yeah, Miles. I thought he got
I,
his
I
contract.
Oh, I'm talking about Hassan. Nah,
Yeah.
he wants that long term big guy, big time player
So
contract.
no,
Like,
he's not coming back. He's not coming
yeah.
back.
And Miles Garrett, I'll tell you right now, I can guarantee I tell you right now what's going to happen. The Eagles made a call about Miles Garrett, and the Eagles are linked to him, just to say that, because how he calls everybody on this. So he's going to be attached to it. The thing's going to be Miles Garrett, I know, is very has a good relationship with Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata. So, and he's at the age he's mentioned. He wants to win. So you look at the teams that could potentially get him. The Eagles will want him. He's going to want Garrett's going to want a contract extension. So how do you work that around? I trust Howie in terms of getting a contract done, but if you do that, then you're going to get Zach Bond. You're going to have to look a different way. But the Eagles need a Eagles need a linebacker no matter what, because Nakobe Dean, even though he's
He's
off
done for
crutches,
the
he might
year.
be back. He might be back soon later because he's not on crutches anymore. They say it usually takes 6 weeks to do that. I talked to him Thursday. He wasn't on crutches. And they say it usually takes 6 weeks. He's done it in 3. So I'm like, wait, what? He might seriously be back by the time this time. So, but they
Will
still
he
need
be
some
back
back.
or will he able to play football or will he just be back?
I think he might. He's ahead of schedule. So, if anything, maybe if he maybe misses maybe week 1, maybe 2, but that's still then the way he's recovering, it puts you in play. So they still need one just in case too, because he's approaching his contract then soon. Because he's a third round pick, he gets a 4-year contract, so you need something there. So it's a lot of stuff they do it. And while we're talking, let's look at this too. The Eagles would take a 12 million cap hit right now if they cut Bryce off with a post June one
That's nothing.
trade
That's
designation.
nothing.
It's well, yeah,
That's
$12 million,
nothing.
and they save 19 in the future. Same thing. And now here's the interesting thing: if they trade him after June 1st, no, I'm saying if they trade him before June 1st, they get a $5 million cap hit. If they trade him after June 1st, they actually don't have a cap hit. They save $4 million. That's
He's
one to watch.
he's gone. No,
That's one.
how he leaves is up to Howie, unintended. But he's out of here. He's out of here. You mentioned the
Yeah.
PMP in the Super Bowl. I'll say this. I don't think I heard his name in any of the 17 games I watched the Eagles play. I don't think I heard his name on the field in any of the 17 games. That's an indictment on Howie. That's an indictment on the organization. That's an indictment of coaching so they can move on. Now, you said back then, for me, the guy that I think isn't going to be back, and I know I sound crazy when I said this, or said this at the time, I think it's Josh Sweat. I think Josh Sweat is out of there. I felt like Josh Sweat was going to be out there only because they've revamped their defensive line pretty much on the fly. They can take some of his money and allocate it different ways. They can draft at the end. So that's why I thought he would be out there. He would get big money. I thought initially Zach Bourne would be back because I felt like the difference between 12 million and 14 million really is essentially taxes depending on where you live. And the team that was going to probably go after was going to be a team that was going to be in a high tax state. But then when you told me they didn't talk to him, that concerns me. Finally, Myles Garrett. I don't know if I want Myles Garrett. I don't know what Myles Garrett gives me. Yeah, he gives me a tremendous edge rusher, but you're not going to beat the top quarterbacks in the NFL with tremendous edge rushing. You have to be able to cover space. That's the number one rule. You have to be able to cover space in the middle of the field. And Myles Garrett doesn't do that. He helps you, he gets his 16, 17 sacks, but can he cover space or can he turn on a la Reggie White in critical moments of the game? Floor is yours.
I think he can. And it's like Hassan Reddick when we heard that when he was dropped. Like if anybody looked at 2022, he's like he doesn't want to drop back in the coverage. He actually dropped back like 30, 40 times in the coverage. You don't need him to do it all the time, but the threat to be able to do that in space. And Garrett's still athletic enough to do that.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing is I don't think there's I just don't know if they have the cap. They want to invest the capital to get him because they saying no. You need to wow them. They're going to have to get at least a first round pick. Like, are they going to want the 32nd pick? Maybe because you get the extra the 5th year option, but it's not as lucrative as say a 16 or 17 because he's Miles Garrett. You're going to throw him 2. Eh, I don't know. Two
Yeah,
first round picks.
that's yeah.
That's rough.
I don't
I
know
mean,
if it's
traditional
gonna happen.
second.
Yeah, he's not going for a second. He's gonna go for at least one first, maybe two. And he's gonna go somewhere like Detroit or somewhere like
That's
Minnesota.
the one.
Yeah, and
That's
they
the
can have
one.
him. They can have him because the Detroit's problem with a litany of things. It wasn't just pass rush. Chris has been a great season, man. Starting the season out, I forget who. I tried to look it up and see, but I can't remember. Do you remember who your Super Bowl picks were beginning of the season?
I can't remember. I think it
Mine
may have
was
been like the Lions or. something. Lions and
Mine
Chiefs maybe.
was the Baltimore Ravens and the Philadelphia Eagles. That was my Super Bowl pick.
That was very, very close. It should
Yeah,
have been.
very, very close. And going back this year, we got our off season, but I'm predicting the Eagles to roll again coming back next year. And I also predict Aaron Rodgers will be a Raider, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Isn't necessarily a bad thing. Chris, I appreciate you, my guy. We were talking a few weeks, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks. Talking about 2 or 3 weeks. Great work, great season. Good to hear from you. That's it from this episode of Unparalleled Sports Talk. If you like the podcast, make sure you share, subscribe, comment, whatever your podcast platform allows you to do. He is Chris Franklin. I am Kwame Fisher Jones. Until next time, we appreciate your time here. You be easy.